The expensive car pulled up to the curb, and 8-year-old Maya watched through the window as a man in a tailored suit stepped out, followed by his elegantly dressed wife. She had been waiting for the right moment, the right people, and something about their gentle faces told her these might be the ones. What she asked them next would leave everyone watching speechless, but more importantly, it would reveal the true character of two strangers who had no idea they were about to change a little girl's entire world. Before we carry on, please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any more amazing stories, and let me know where you are watching from in the comments. The morning sun cast long shadows across Fifth Avenue as Maya Rodriguez pressed her small face against the cold glass of the coffee shop window. Her breath fogged the surface as she watched well-dressed people hurry past, their designer shoes clicking against the polished concrete. At 8 years old, she had learned to read faces quickly, to distinguish between those who might spare a kind word and those who would look right through her as if she were invisible. Maya's stomach rumbled quietly, a familiar companion these past few months since she and her grandmother had lost their apartment. Abuela Rosa worked 3 jobs now, cleaning offices at night, washing dishes at a diner during the day, and watching neighbor children in the evenings. Still, it wasn't enough to secure them a permanent home. They moved from shelter to shelter, occasionally sleeping in Rosa's old Honda Civic, when the waiting lists grew too long. Today was different though. Today was Maya's birthday, and she had been planning something special for weeks. Not a party or presents, those luxuries belonged to a different world, but something that would cost just enough to matter. She had been saving every penny she found on the street. Every quarter generous strangers occasionally dropped into the small cup she sometimes held when Abuela wasn't watching. The total came to exactly $37.63, enough for a child's admission to the Central Park Zoo. The idea had formed 3 weeks ago when she overheard 2 children talking about the penguins, their voices full of wonder as they described the playful birds sliding on the ice. Maya had never seen a penguin, had never been to a zoo, had never experienced the simple joy of watching animals play without purpose other than their own happiness. The longing had grown inside her like a seed seeking sunlight, until she knew she had to find a way. But there was a problem. Children under 12 needed adult supervision to enter the zoo, and Abuela Rosa worked doubles on weekends to make ends meet. Maya couldn't ask her grandmother to lose precious wages for something as frivolous as a zoo visit. Rosa was already sacrificing everything, working until her hands cracked and her back ached, all to keep Maya fed and safe. So Maya had developed a plan. She would find nice people, adults who might understand, and ask them to take her to the zoo. Not for money. She had her own savings for that, but simply for the companionship required by the rules. It seemed reasonable to her 8-year-old mind. After all, weren't adults supposed to help children? She had tried twice before. The first time, a woman in a yoga outfit had hurried past without even slowing down when Maya approached. The second attempt had been with an elderly man feeding pigeons, but he had grown suspicious of her request and suggested she find her parents. Maya hadn't bothered explaining that her parents existed only in faded photographs and distant memories. Now, as she watched the street through the coffee shop window, she spotted them. A couple emerged from a sleek black sedan, the man carefully helping his wife step onto the curb. They moved with the unhurried grace of people who had never worried about where their next meal would come from, yet something in their bearing suggested kindness rather than arrogance. The man was tall with grained temples and laugh lines around his eyes. He wore a charcoal wool coat that probably cost more than Rosa made in a month, but his smile was genuine as he spoke to his wife. The woman was elegant, her silver hair styled in a soft bob, wearing a cream-colored cashmere coat that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Most importantly to Maya, they were holding hands and seemed to genuinely enjoy each other's company. Maya made her decision. She smoothed down her worn jeans, the ones Rosa had bought from a thrift store, and carefully mended where the knees had worn through. Her jacket was too large, a donation from a church clothing drive, but it was clean and warm. Rosa always insisted on clean clothes, no matter how difficult it was to keep them that way while living in temporary housing. Taking a deep breath, Maya pushed open the coffee shop door and stepped onto the sidewalk. The couple was examining a restaurant menu posted in a window, discussing lunch options in the comfortable way of people who had been married for many years. "Excuse me," Maya said, her voice small but clear. They turned toward her, and she was relieved to see curiosity rather than annoyance in their expressions. "I'm sorry to bother you, but I was wondering if you could help me with something." The woman's eyebrows rose slightly, and she glanced at her husband before crouching down to Maya's eye level. This simple gesture, making herself smaller to match Maya's height, told the little girl she had chosen well. "Of course, sweetheart," the woman said, her voice carrying a slight southern accent that made her words feel like a warm hug. "What do you need?" Maya had rehearsed this moment, but now that it was happening, her carefully planned words scattered like leaves in the wind. She pulled the small cloth bag from her jacket pocket, the one where she kept her zoo savings, and held it carefully in both hands. "I have money for the zoo," she said, opening the bag to show the crumpled bills and coins. $37.63, but they won't let kids in without a grown-up, and my abuela is working today. I was wondering, could you maybe take me? I promise I won't be any trouble, and I can pay for my own ticket." The couple exchanged a look that Maya couldn't quite interpret. The man's expression had grown serious, while his wife's eyes had filled with something that looked like both sadness and wonder. "What's your name, honey?" the woman asked gently. "Maya Rodriguez. I'm 8 years old today, and I've never seen a penguin before." The words tumbled out in a rush, as if saying them quickly might make her request seem more reasonable. "I've been saving up for a really long time, and I know it's weird to ask strangers, but you seem really nice, and I promise I'll stay right with you and not run off or anything." The man knelt down beside his wife, his expensive suit somehow managing not to wrinkle as he balanced on his heels. "Today is your birthday?" he asked, and Maya nodded eagerly. "Are you here by yourself?" the woman asked, her voice gentle but concerned. Maya felt a familiar tightness in her chest, the way she always did when adults started asking too many questions. She had learned to be careful about how much she revealed. Well-meaning grown-ups, sometimes called social services, and Maya had heard stories about children being separated from their families when caseworkers decided parents or guardians weren't providing adequate care. "Abuela Rosa is working," Maya said carefully. "She works really hard, and I didn't want to ask her to miss work just to take me to the zoo. That wouldn't be fair." The couple looked at each other again, having one of those silent conversations that long-married people can have with just their eyes. Finally, the woman reached out and gently touched Maya's shoulder. "My name is Catherine, and this is my husband, William," she said. "We would be honored to take you to the zoo for your birthday, Maya." Maya's heart leaped, but William was already reaching for his phone. "First, though, we need to call your grandmother and make sure she knows where you are. Can you give us her number?" For a moment, Maya's face fell. She knew Abuela Rosa would worry, might even forbid the zoo trip if she knew Maya had approached strangers. But something in William's tone brooked no argument, and Maya realized that these people were going to do things properly, whether she liked it or not. Reluctantly, she recited Rosa's cell phone number. William dialed, while Catherine stayed crouched beside Maya, her hand still resting reassuringly on the little girl's shoulder. "Mrs. Rodriguez?" William said when the call connected. "My name is William Harrison. I'm here with your granddaughter Maya, and she's asked us to take her to the zoo for her birthday. I wanted to check with you first and make sure you're comfortable with this arrangement." Maya could hear Rosa's voice through the phone, rapid Spanish mixed with concerned English. William's responses were patient and calm, and gradually Maya could hear her grandmother's tone shifting from alarm to cautious curiosity. "Yes, ma'am, I understand completely," William was saying. "Would you like to speak with Maya? And perhaps we could meet you somewhere first, so you can see that we're trustworthy people." The conversation continued for several more minutes, with William providing his full name, phone number, and even the address of his business. Maya was amazed by his patience and thoroughness. Most adults she knew were always in a hurry, too busy to spend time on proper introductions. Finally, William handed the phone to Maya. "Mija," Rosa's voice came through clearly. "You promise me you will stay with these people? You don't run off? You don't talk to anyone else? And you call me if anything feels wrong? I promise, abuela, Maya said, solemnly. They seem really nice, and they want to make sure you're okay with everything. Mrs. Harrison, she is there? Rosa asked, and Maya passed the phone to Catherine. Hello, Mrs. Rodriguez, Catherine said warmly. I want you to know that Maya is a very polite and well-mannered little girl. We have grandchildren of our own, and we would be delighted to spend the afternoon with her. Would you like us to bring her by your work so you can meet press? Us first? After more discussion, it was arranged that they would pick up Rosa during her lunch break at the diner where she worked days. The restaurant was only a few blocks away, and Rosa would have 30 minutes to meet the Harrisons and decide whether she felt comfortable entrusting Maya to their care. As they walked toward William's car, Maya clutched her bag of zoo money tightly. She had never ridden in such an expensive vehicle, and she was careful to wipe her shoes on the sidewalk before getting into the pristine leather interior. This is a really nice car, she said softly, running her hand over the smooth seat. Thank you, William replied, adjusting the rearview mirror so he could see her in the back seat. Maya, can you tell us a little about yourself? What grade are you in school? 3rd grade, Maya answered. I go to PS 163. I like reading the best, and math is okay too. My teacher, Mrs. Patterson, says I'm really good at writing stories. That's wonderful, Catherine said, turning in her seat to seat. Smile at Maya. Do you write stories about animals? Maya nodded enthusiastically. Sometimes. I wrote one about a dog who could talk, but only to children, and another one about a bird who was afraid to fly but learned how when she needed to save her babies. Those sound like excellent stories, William said. Maybe you'll write one about penguins after today. The diner where Rosa worked was a small, tired-looking place, wedged between a laundromat and a cell phone repair shop. Through the window, Maya could see her grandmother's familiar figure moving efficiently between tables, a coffee pot in one hand and a dish rag in the other. When they entered, Rosa looked up immediately, her eyes scanning the couple with the practiced assessment of someone who had learned to judge people quickly for survival. Maya watched her grandmother's expression soften slightly as she took in William's respectful posture and Catherine's genuine smile. Mrs. Rodriguez, William said, extending his hand. Thank you for taking the time to meet us. Rosa wiped her hands on her apron before shaking his hand, then Catherine's. She was a small woman, barely reaching Catherine's shoulder, but she carried herself with the dignity of someone who had worked hard for everything she had. You are very kind to want to take Maya to the zoo, Rosa said, her English careful but clear. She has been talking about the penguins for weeks. She's a remarkable little girl, Catherine said. Very polite and articulate. You should be proud. Maya saw something shift in her grandmother's expression, a slight relaxation of the shoulders that indicated Rosa was beginning to trust these strangers. They talked for a few more minutes, with William providing additional details about their plans, and Catherine sharing stories about their own grandchildren's zoo visits. You will bring her back here when the zoo closes? Rosa asked, glancing at the clock on the diner wall. Absolutely, William confirmed. We'll have her back by 5 o'clock, and we'll make sure she has dinner before we return her to you. Oh, you don't need to, Rosa began, but Catherine held up a gentle hand. It would be our pleasure, she said. It's Maya's birthday, after all. As they prepared to leave, Rosa pulled Maya aside and spoke to her quietly in Spanish. Maya nodded seriously at whatever her grandmother was telling her, then hugged Rosa tightly around the waist. Feliz cumpleaños, mija, Rosa whispered, kissing the top of Maya's head. Have fun with the penguins. Back in the car, Maya was quieter, processing the reality that her plan had actually worked. She was really going to the zoo, with kind people who seemed to genuinely care about her well-being. It felt almost too good to be true. Maya, Catherine said as they drove through Central Park. William and I were wondering, would you like to have lunch at the zoo? There's a nice cafe there, and it would be our treat. Maya's first instinct was to refuse. The way Rosa had taught her to politely decline charity. But something about the way Catherine phrased it, as if they were friends making plans together rather than adults taking pity on a poor child, made it feel different. That would be really nice, Maya said. Thank you. You're very welcome, sweetheart. The Central Park Zoo appeared before them like something from a dream. Maya had walked past it many times, but she had never been inside, never seen beyond the entrance gates. Now, as William paid for their tickets despite Maya's protests that she had her own money, she felt a bubble of excitement growing in her chest. "I think we should start with the penguins," William said, consulting the zoo map. "Since that's what you've been most excited about." Maya nodded eagerly, clutching the map he handed her. The pathway wound through carefully maintained gardens, past exhibits housing seals and polar bears. But Maya's attention was entirely focused on the signs pointing toward the penguin house. When they finally reached the exhibit, Maya pressed her face against the glass and gasped. The penguins were everything she had imagined, and more. They waddled across the artificial ice with comedic dignity, dove gracefully into the crystal-clear water, and seemed to communicate with each other through a series of honks and squawks that made Maya giggle. "They're so funny," she breathed, watching two penguins engage in what looked like a playful argument over a fish. "That one reminds me of your Uncle Robert," Catherine said to William, pointing to a particularly portly penguin who was standing slightly apart from the group, looking vaguely offended by something. William chuckled. "The resemblance is uncanny." Maya looked up at them, realizing that they were sharing a private joke, including her in their family humor, as if she belonged there. The feeling was warm, and strange, and wonderful. They spent nearly an hour at the penguin exhibit, with Maya asking endless questions about the birds' behavior, their diet, and their natural habitat. William and Catherine answered what they could, and read the informational plaques aloud, when Maya's reading skills weren't quite up to the scientific terminology. "Can we see the sea lions next?" Maya asked, consulting her map with the seriousness of an expedition leader. "Absolutely," Catherine said. "You're the birthday girl, so you get to choose our adventure." The sea lions were performing their afternoon show when they arrived, and Maya was mesmerized by the intelligent animals' ability to balance balls on their noses and clap their flippers on command. She clapped enthusiastically after each trick, her laughter mixing with that of the other children in the audience. "How do they learn to do all those things?" Maya asked, as they walked away from the show. "Lots of practice and positive reinforcement," William explained. "The trainers work with them every day, teaching them one small step at a time. It's similar to how you learn to read or write, building one skill on top of another." Maya considered this seriously. "Like how Mrs. Patterson taught us to write paragraphs by first learning to write good sentences?" "Exactly like that," Catherine said, smiling at Maya's quick understanding. As they continued through the zoo, stopping to admire the snow leopards and laugh at the playful otters, Maya found herself relaxing in a way she hadn't experienced in months. There was something profoundly peaceful about not having to worry about anything beyond choosing which animal to visit next. No concerns about where they would sleep that night, no anxiety about whether there would be enough food for dinner, no need to be constantly vigilant for potential dangers. Just the simple joy of being a child at the zoo on her birthday. "Are you getting hungry?" William asked as they passed the cafe. "It's past lunchtime." Maya realized she was hungry, but she was also reluctant to interrupt their animal viewing. "Could we maybe see the monkeys first?" she asked hopefully. "Of course," Catherine said. "But then, we definitely need to get some food in you." The primate house was Maya's favorite exhibit yet. She was fascinated by the various species, from the tiny marmosets to the impressive gorillas. She spent particularly long watching a family of chimpanzees, noting the way the adults interacted with their young. "The baby chimps stay really close to their moms," she observed, watching a small chimp cling to its mother's fur as she moved around the enclosure. "That's because the mothers need to keep them safe and teach them important skills," Catherine said. "Just like human mothers and grandmothers do." Maya nodded thoughtfully. "Abuela Rosa teaches me lots of stuff, like how to be polite to people and how to work hard for what you want." "She sounds like a very wise woman," William said. "She is," Maya agreed. "She came here from Mexico when she was young, and she says America gave her opportunities to work and take care of family. She always tells me to be grateful for what we have and to help other people when we can." Catherine and William exchanged another one of their meaningful looks, but Maya was too engrossed in watching the chimps to notice. Finally, They made their way to the cafe, where Maya was overwhelmed by the choices available. She had grown accustomed to simple meals, usually rice and beans, or pasta with whatever vegetables Rosa could afford. The cafe menu seemed impossibly luxurious. "What looks good to you?" Catherine asked, studying the menu alongside Maya. "I don't know," Maya admitted. "Everything looks really fancy." "How about a grilled cheese sandwich and some fruit?" William suggested. "That's a good birthday lunch." Maya nodded gratefully, relieved not to have to make such a momentous decision. As they waited for their food, she found herself studying her companions more closely. She had initially been focused on their obvious wealth, but now she was noticing smaller details. The way William pulled out Catherine's chair before sitting down himself. How Catherine automatically offered Maya the first choice of where to sit. The way they both listened intently when she spoke, as if her 8-year-old observations were genuinely interesting to them. "Can I ask you something?" Maya said as their food arrived. "Of course," Catherine replied. "Why did you say yes?" "When I asked you to bring me to the zoo, I mean. Most grown-ups would probably think it was weird for a kid to ask strangers for help." William set down his sandwich and considered the question seriously. "You know, Maya, when I was about your age, I really wanted to go to a baseball game. My father worked long hours, and my mother was taking care of my baby sister. I saved up my allowance money and asked my neighbor, Mr. Peterson, if he would take me." "Did he say yes?" Maya asked. "He did, and it was one of the best days of my childhood. Mr. Peterson didn't have any children of his own, and I think he enjoyed sharing that experience with me as much as I enjoyed going to the game. Sometimes, Catherine added. When a child asks for help in such a thoughtful, polite way, it's an honor to be able to say yes. You could have asked us for money, but instead you asked for something much more valuable, our time and company. That tells us a lot about the kind of person you are." Maya felt a warm flush of pride. She had never thought of her request as particularly special, but hearing Catherine explain it that way made her feel mature and thoughtful. "Plus," William added with a grin, "it's been years since we've been to the zoo. Our grandchildren live in California, and we don't get to do fun things like this very often anymore." "You have grandchildren?" Maya asked, immediately interested. "Two," Catherine said, pulling out her phone to show Maya pictures. "Jessica is 10, and Marcus is 7. They're about your age." Maya studied the photos of 2 children with gap-toothed smiles and bright eyes. "They look really nice. Do you miss them?" "Very much," William said quietly. "Our son and daughter-in-law moved to Los Angeles a few years ago for work. We visit when we can, but it's not the same as having them nearby." Maya nodded seriously. She understood missing people. She missed her parents, even though her memories of them were hazy and dreamlike. She missed the stability of having a permanent home, missed the feeling of belonging somewhere completely. "Maybe you could video call them later and tell them about the zoo," Maya suggested. "I bet they'd like to hear about the penguins and the sea lions." Catherine's eyes grew bright. "That's a wonderful idea, Maya. Would you like to say hello to them if we call later?" Maya's face lit up. "Really? That would be so cool!" After lunch, they continued their tour of the zoo. Maya was particularly enchanted by the butterfly garden, where colorful wings fluttered all around them like living flowers. She stood very still when a large monarch butterfly landed on her shoulder, barely breathing until it flew away. "Did you see that?" she whispered in awe. "It picked me." "Butterflies are attracted to stillness and calm energy," Catherine explained. "It could sense that you were a peaceful person." As the afternoon wore on, Maya began to feel a familiar tightness in her chest, the sadness that always came when good things were about to end. She tried to push the feeling away, to focus on the present moment, but it lingered like a shadow at the edge of her happiness. They were watching the harbor seals when William's phone rang. He stepped away to answer it, his voice becoming serious and businesslike. Maya couldn't hear the conversation, but she could tell from his posture that something important was happening. "I'm sorry," he said when he returned. "That was my office. There's a situation I need to handle, but it should only take about 30 minutes. Would you mind if we step into the administrative building so I can make a few calls?" Maya felt a spike of anxiety. She knew from experience that when adults had to handle business, children often became inconvenient obstacles. "Should I wait outside?" she asked. "Absolutely not," Catherine said firmly. "You're staying right with us. William just needs to sort out some work things, and then we can finish our zoo visit." The administrative building was quiet and professional, with comfortable seating and large windows overlooking the park. Maya sat between William and Catherine, while William made his calls, speaking in the calm, authoritative tone she was learning to associate with people who were used to solving problems. While William worked, Catherine pulled out a small sketchbook and began drawing. Maya watched, fascinated, as a detailed penguin took shape on the paper. "You're really good at that," Maya said softly. "Thank you," Catherine whispered back. "I used to be an art teacher, before I retired. Would you like to try drawing something?" Catherine tore out a fresh sheet of paper and offered Maya a pencil. Maya had always enjoyed drawing, though she rarely had access to good paper or proper pencils. She thought for a moment, then began sketching the butterfly that had landed on her shoulder. Catherine watched approvingly as Maya's drawing took shape. "You have a good eye for detail," she said quietly. "Look how you captured the pattern on the wings." William finished his calls and turned his attention to Maya's artwork. "That's excellent, Maya. You're quite an artist." "Abuela Rosa says I get it from my mom," Maya said, then immediately looked worried, as if she had revealed too much. "Your mother was an artist?" Catherine asked gently. Maya nodded. "She painted pictures of flowers and birds. Abuela still has some of them, but we had to put most of our stuff in storage when we lost our apartment." There was a moment of quiet, and Maya wondered if she had said something wrong. She had learned to be careful about mentioning their housing situation, but somehow with the Harrisons, the truth had slipped out naturally. "That must be very difficult," William said simply, without the pity or excessive concern that Maya had learned to dread from well-meaning adults. "It's okay," Maya said quickly. "Abuela works really hard, and she says things will get better soon. She's looking for a better job, one that pays enough for us to get our own place again." Catherine and William exchanged another look, but before Maya could wonder what it meant, William was standing up and gathering his things. "I think that's taken care of," he said. "Should we go see what other animals are waiting for us?" They spent the remaining hour before closing time visiting the remaining exhibits. Maya was particularly taken with the red pandas, whose fluffy tails and playful antics reminded her of the stuffed animals she had owned before they had to leave most of their belongings behind. As closing time approached, Maya felt the day's magic beginning to fade, replaced by the reality of returning to their uncertain living situation. She tried to memorize everything, the way the late afternoon light filtered through the trees. The sound of Catherine's laugh, when the otters performed an impromptu, synchronized swimming routine, the patient way William answered her endless questions about the animals' behaviors. "I wish it didn't have to end," she said quietly as they walked toward the exit. "All good things have to end eventually," Catherine said gently. "But that doesn't mean they weren't wonderful while they lasted, and now you have all these memories to keep forever. Plus," William added, "we promised your grandmother we'd take you to dinner. The day isn't over yet." Maya had forgotten about the dinner promise, and her spirits lifted slightly. She was discovering that spending time with the Harrisons was like unwrapping a series of gifts, each moment better than she had expected. They drove to a family restaurant near the diner where Rosa worked, a place with cheerful red booths and a menu that featured comfort food alongside more sophisticated options. Maya had never eaten in a restaurant where a waiter took her order and brought her food on real plates instead of paper ones. "What sounds good to you?" William asked, perusing the menu. Maya studied the choices carefully. "Could I have spaghetti and meatballs?" she asked tentatively. "Excellent choice," Catherine said. "That's comfort food at its finest." While they waited for their food, Maya found herself talking more freely than she had all day. Perhaps it was the comfort of a full stomach from lunch, or the contentment that came from a day filled with new experiences, but she began sharing stories about school, about her favorite books, about the games she and Rosa played in the evenings when they were staying at the shelter. "Abuela taught me to play dominoes," she said, "and now I beat her sometimes. She pretends to be upset, but I can tell she's proud that I learned so well. Dominoes is a game of strategy, William said. If you're beating your grandmother, you must be quite intelligent. Rosa sounds like an amazing grandmother, Catherine added. You're very lucky to have each other. I know, Maya said seriously. Some kids at the shelter don't have anybody. There's this one boy, Jamie, who's only 6, and he's been there for months waiting for a foster family. I try to share my snacks with him when I can. The waiter arrived with their food, and Maya's eyes widened at the generous portion of spaghetti and meatballs placed before her. She was used to carefully measured portions, enough to satisfy hunger, but rarely enough for the luxury of feeling completely full. This is so much food, she said wonderingly. Eat as much as you want, Catherine said. And if you can't finish it, we can take the rest to your grandmother. Maya ate steadily, savoring each bite. The meatballs were tender and flavorful, the pasta perfectly cooked, the sauce rich with herbs she couldn't identify. Halfway through the meal, she realized she was fuller than she had been in weeks, but the food was too delicious to stop eating. I think I need to save some for Abuela, she said reluctantly, pushing the plate away when it was still half full. That's very thoughtful of you, William said, signaling the waiter for a takeout container. As they prepared to leave the restaurant, Catherine excused herself to use the restroom. While she was gone, William's expression grew serious, and he leaned forward slightly in his seat. Maya, he said quietly, I want to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest with me. Are you and your grandmother safe where you're staying? Maya felt her stomach clench with familiar anxiety. This was the question she had been dreading, the one that could lead to phone calls to social services and the possibility of being separated from Rosa. We're fine, she said quickly. The shelter is safe, and Abuela takes really good care of me. William studied her face carefully. I'm sure she does, but I want you to know that if you ever need help, if there's ever a situation where you don't feel safe or you need somewhere to go, you can call us. Would you like me to write down our phone number? Maya nodded slowly. She wasn't sure what kind of help William was offering, but something in his tone made her believe he was genuine. William wrote his and Catherine's numbers on a napkin, then folded it carefully and handed it to Maya. Put this somewhere safe, he said. And remember, sometimes it's okay to ask adults for help when you need it. Catherine returned to the table, and they gathered their things to leave. The sun was setting as they drove back to the diner, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that reminded Maya of the butterfly wings she had seen earlier. Rosa was waiting outside the diner when they arrived, having finished her shift a few minutes early. Maya bounded out of the car and straight into her grandmother's arms, chattering excitedly about penguins and sea lions and the butterfly that had chosen her shoulder as a landing spot. Slow down, mija, Rosa laughed, but her eyes were bright with joy at seeing Maya so animated and happy. William and Catherine approached more slowly, carrying the takeout container from dinner and Maya's drawing of the butterfly. How was she? Rosa asked, though Maya's obvious excitement had already answered the question. She was wonderful, Catherine said sincerely. Polite, curious, thoughtful. You should be very proud. We had a lovely day, William added. Maya was excellent company. Rosa's eyes filled with tears. She quickly blinked away. Thank you, she said simply. You have given her a gift I could not give. Actually, Catherine said, she gave us a gift too. We haven't had such a delightful day in a very long time. Maya was still bubbling with excitement, describing each animal in detail and insisting that Rosa look at her drawing. But as the adults talked, she became aware of an undercurrent in the conversation, something unspoken passing between the three grown-ups. Mrs. Rodriguez, William said carefully, we hope you don't mind, but we'd like to stay in touch. Perhaps we could take Maya to another museum or park sometime, if you're comfortable with that. Rosa's expression grew cautious. You are very kind, she said slowly, but I do not want Maya to become, how do you say, too attached to things we cannot keep. Maya felt her heart sink. She had been hoping this was the beginning of a friendship, not just a single perfect day that would live only in her memory. We understand your concern, Catherine said gently. But we're not offering charity. We're offering friendship. Maya is a remarkable child, and we would genuinely enjoy spending more time with her, if you're both comfortable with that. Plus, William added, we have a proposal we'd like to discuss with you, if you have a few minutes. Rosa glanced at Maya, then back at the Harrisons. What kind of proposal? William looked around the busy street, then nodded toward the diner. Could we perhaps go inside and sit down? This conversation might take a few minutes. The diner was mostly empty. The dinner rush still an hour away. They settled into a corner booth, with Maya sitting next to Rosa and the Harrisons across from them. Maya could sense the importance of whatever was about to be discussed, and she found herself holding her breath. Mrs. Rodriguez, William began. During our conversation today, Maya mentioned that you're looking for better employment opportunities. I own a business, Harrison & Associates. We provide consulting services to small businesses. We're always looking for dedicated, hard-working people. End quote. Rosa's eyebrows rose slightly. What kind of work? Administrative support, client relations, bookkeeping? The starting salary is significantly higher than what you're making now. And we provide health insurance and other benefits. More importantly, the hours are regular, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. End quote. Maya saw her grandmother's hands tighten slightly on the table. Why would you offer this to me? You do not know me. We know enough, Catherine said softly. We know you raised a granddaughter who is polite, articulate, and thoughtful. We know you work multiple jobs to provide for her. We know you've taught her values, like gratitude and kindness. Those qualities don't happen by accident, Rosa. They come from good parenting and strong character. William nodded in agreement. I've been in business for 30 years, and I've learned to recognize quality people. Maya's behavior today told us everything we need to know about the woman who raised her. Rosa was quiet for a long moment, her eyes moving between the Harrisons and Maya. This is not charity? She asked finally. Absolutely not, William said firmly. This is business. We need reliable employees, and you need steady work with better pay. It's mutually beneficial. The salary would be enough for you to rent your own apartment, Catherine added gently. Maya mentioned you've been staying in temporary housing. Maya felt a flutter of hope in her chest, but she didn't dare let it grow too large. She had learned not to count on good things happening, even when they seemed possible. What about references? Rosa asked practically. Background checks? I have never worked in an office. We can handle the background check easily enough, William said. As for references, your current employers will provide those. And don't underestimate your skills, Rosa. Managing multiple jobs while caring for a child requires exactly the kind of organizational abilities and work ethic we value. Plus, Catherine added, we believe in training people for success. You wouldn't be thrown into anything without proper support and guidance. Rosa looked down at Maya, who was trying hard to keep her expression neutral, despite the excitement building inside her. What do you think, mija? Maya considered the question seriously. I think they're nice people, abuela. And if you worked in an office, you wouldn't have to stand on your feet all day, and your hands wouldn't hurt so much at night. Rosa's eyes softened. She had tried to hide how much the physical demands of her current jobs were wearing on her, but Maya noticed everything. There's one more thing, William said. The job comes with tuition assistance for Belle. Dependents. If Maya continues to do well in school, we could help with college expenses when the time comes. This time, Rosa couldn't hide her emotional response. Tears spilled over despite her efforts to contain them. College, she whispered. I have dreamed of this for her, but I did not know how. Dreams are important, Catherine said quietly, but they're even better when they become plans. Maya reached over and took her grandmother's hand. It sounds really good, abuela, but only if you want to. Rosa wiped her eyes with her free hand, then straightened her shoulders in the gesture Maya recognized as her grandmother making a decision. When would I start? How about Monday? William suggested. That gives you the weekend to give notice at your current jobs. We'll start you with basic administrative tasks, filing, answering phones, things like that. As you get comfortable, we can expand your responsibilities. And the salary? Rosa asked, though Maya could tell she was almost afraid to hear the answer. William named a figure that made Rosa's eyes widen. It was more than she currently made at all 3 jobs combined. And it would require only 40 hours a week, instead of the 70 or 80 she was working now. This is real? Rosa asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "This is really happening?" "It's really happening," Catherine confirmed. "Though we do have one condition." Maya felt her stomach drop. There was always a catch, always some requirement that made good things impossible. "What condition?" Rosa asked warily. Catherine smiled. "Maya has to promise to call us her honorary grandparents. We missed having grandchildren nearby, and she's helped fill that empty space in our hearts." Maya looked up at Rosa, who was smiling through her tears. "Can I, abuela? Can I call them Grandma Catherine and Grandpa William?" "If they are sure this is what they want," Rosa said, looking at the Harrisons with wonder. "We're absolutely sure," William said. "In fact, we were hoping you might both join us for Sunday dinner this week. Catherine makes an excellent pot roast, and we'd love to introduce you to our son and daughter-in-law via video call." Maya felt as if she might burst from happiness. Not only was this wonderful day not ending, it seemed to be the beginning of something even better. A job for Rosa that would let them have their own home, college possibilities for her future, and most incredibly, 2 new people who wanted to be part of their small family. "There's just one more thing," William said, pulling out his phone. "We promised Jessica and Marcus we'd call them after the zoo. Maya, would you like to tell them about the penguins?" The video call connected quickly, revealing 2 children who looked exactly like their photos, but somehow more real on the screen. Jessica had lost another tooth since the pictures were taken, and Marcus was wearing a Superman cape that had seen better days. "Grandma! Grandpa!" they chorused when they saw William and Catherine. "We have someone special we want you to meet," Catherine said, turning the phone so Maya was visible. "This is our new friend Maya. She's 8 years old, and today is her birthday." "Happy birthday," Jessica said immediately. "Did you have cake?" Maya realized she hadn't even thought about cake, had been so overwhelmed by the day's events that traditional birthday elements had seemed unimportant. "Not yet," she said. "You have to have birthday cake," Marcus declared, with the authority of a 7-year-old. "It's like the rule." "That's a very good point," William said seriously. "I think we need to remedy that situation immediately." Before Maya quite understood what was happening, Catherine was asking the diner manager if they had any dessert, and within minutes, a slice of chocolate cake had appeared with a single candle stuck in the middle. "Make a wish," Jessica instructed from the phone screen. Maya looked around the table at Rosa, whose eyes were still bright with happy tears, at William and Catherine, who were smiling at her with genuine affection, and at the 2 children on the phone who had immediately accepted her as their friend. She had never had so many good things to wish for come true in a single day. She closed her eyes and made her wish anyway, then blew out the candle. Everyone cheered, including Jessica and Marcus, who clapped enthusiastically from California. "What did you wish for?" Marcus asked. "I can't tell you, or it won't come true," Maya said, but she was smiling as she said it. The truth was, she had wished for this moment to last forever, for this feeling of belonging and safety and love to never end. "But I can tell you about the zoo," she added, and launched into an animated description of the day's adventures. Jessica and Marcus hummed on every word, asking questions about the animals, and making Maya promise to take pictures next time so they could both see everything too. "Next time?" Maya asked, not daring to hope. "Of course there'll be a next time," Catherine said. "We're family now." As the video call ended and they prepared to leave the diner, Maya felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of change that had occurred in a single day. This morning, she had been a homeless child asking strangers for a simple favor. Tonight, she was part of a larger family, with a grandmother who had steady employment and college possibilities in her future. "Mrs. Rodriguez, Rosa," William said as they stood outside the diner. "Here's my business card with all the details about Monday. The office address, the time to arrive, everything you'll need. And here's mine," Catherine added, handing Rosa a card with elegant script. "That has my personal number. If you or Maya need anything at all, please don't hesitate to call." Rosa took the cards with hands that trembled slightly. "I do not know how to thank you," she said. "You don't need to thank us," William replied. "You've given us something precious too. The chance to be grandparents again. the opportunity to help a deserving family, the joy of spending time with an extraordinary little girl. Maya hugged them both goodbye, breathing in Catherine's subtle perfume and noting how William's wool coat felt soft against her cheek. "Will I really see you again?" she asked, the insecurity of the day's earlier fears creeping back in. "Every Sunday," Catherine promised, "and probably more often than that. After all, someone needs to help you practice your drawing skills. And someone needs to hear about all your school adventures," William added. "I have a feeling you're going to have quite a few stories to tell." As the black sedan pulled away from the curb, Maya stood with Rosa on the sidewalk, watching the taillights disappear into the evening traffic. The paper bag with her leftover dinner was warm against her chest, and the napkin with the phone numbers was safely tucked in her jacket pocket. "Abuela," she said quietly, "do you think this is real? Do you think it will really happen?" Rosa put her arm around Maya's shoulders and pulled her close. "I think, mija, that sometimes when you are brave enough to ask for help, the universe sends you exactly what you need." "I only asked them to take me to the zoo," Maya said wonderingly. "Yes," Rosa said, smiling down at her granddaughter. "But what you really asked for was kindness. And kindness, when it is real, grows into something much bigger than you expect." That night, back in their small room at the shelter, Maya lay in the narrow bed she shared with Rosa and replayed every moment of the day. The penguins sliding on the ice, the butterfly choosing her shoulder, the way Catherine had crouched down to her eye level when they first met, the serious way William had discussed her future college education as if it were a certainty rather than a distant dream. But most of all, she remembered the moment when Catherine had said, "We're family now," and how those 4 words had changed everything. Maya had learned not to trust in permanent things, had grown accustomed to temporary situations and uncertain futures. But something about the way Catherine had said those words, with such quiet conviction, made Maya believe that this time might be different. "Abuela," she whispered in the darkness, "what do you think Mama and Papa would say about today?" Rosa was quiet for so long that Maya thought she had fallen asleep. Then her grandmother's voice came soft and warm in the darkness. "I think, mija, they would say they are very proud of the brave, kind girl you have become. And I think they would be grateful that there are people in this world who see how special you are." Maya smiled in the darkness, her hand finding the napkin with the phone numbers under her pillow. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, and Monday would bring changes she couldn't quite imagine yet. But tonight, she was a little girl who had seen penguins on her birthday, who had gained a new family, and who had learned that sometimes the most extraordinary adventures begin with a simple, polite request. The weeks that followed passed in a whirlwind of change that left Maya feeling as if she were living in someone else's life. Rosa started work at Harrison & Associates the following Monday, and within days, it became clear that William's instincts about her abilities had been correct. She proved to be naturally organized, quick to learn new systems, and possessed of an intuitive understanding of client relations that impressed everyone in the office. "Your grandmother is a natural," William told Maya during their first Sunday dinner together. "She's already improved our filing system and suggested 3 ways to streamline our client intake process." Maya felt a familiar surge of pride in Rosa's accomplishments. Her grandmother had always been capable and hard-working, but now she had an opportunity to showcase skills that her previous jobs had never required. The Sunday dinners became a cherished tradition. Catherine's dining room was elegant but comfortable, with a large table that easily accommodated the extended family that seemed to grow each week. Sometimes William's business partner and his wife would join them, sometimes neighbors who had become friends over the years. Maya learned to navigate multiple forks and to participate in dinner conversations that ranged from current events to family stories to plans for the future. "Maya," Catherine said during their 3rd Sunday dinner, "I've been thinking about your interest in art. There's a wonderful children's art program at the community center. Would you like to try it?" Maya's eyes lit up. "Really? They teach kids how to draw and paint?" "All kinds of art," William said. "Drawing, painting, sculpture, even pottery. And they have scholarships available for families who need financial assistance." "But we don't need assistance anymore," Maya said proudly. "Abuela has a good job now." "That's true," Rosa said. smiling at her granddaughter's pride. But it is still wise to be careful with money, until we are more settled. Within a month, Rosa had saved enough for a security deposit on a small 2-bedroom apartment in a safe neighborhood with good schools. Maya would be able to finish the school year at PS 163, but in the fall, she would transfer to a school closer to their new home. "I'm going to miss Mrs. Patterson," Maya said, as they toured the empty apartment that would soon be theirs. "But I'm excited about having my own room." The apartment was small but bright, with large windows that let in plenty of natural light. Maya immediately claimed the smaller bedroom, insisting that Rosa deserved the larger space. They spent weekends shopping for furniture, with Catherine and William providing guidance and occasionally purchasing items that Rosa couldn't quite afford yet. "This is too much," Rosa protested when Catherine arrived with curtains for Maya's room. "You have already done so much for us, Rosa," Catherine said gently. "You have to let us enjoy this too. We haven't had the pleasure of helping someone build a home in years. Besides, Maya picked out the fabric herself. Look, how proud she is." Maya was indeed proud, having spent considerable time selecting curtains with a butterfly pattern that reminded her of the zoo. She hung them carefully with William's help, stepping back to admire the way they transformed the empty room into something that looked like home. The art classes proved to be another source of joy for Maya. She showed natural talent and responded well to instruction, quickly progressing from basic drawing exercises to more complex projects. Her teacher, Mrs. Chen, was particularly impressed with Maya's observational skills and her ability to capture emotion in her subjects. "She has an unusual ability to see beneath the surface," Mrs. Chen told Catherine when she came to pick Maya up after class. "Her portraits don't just show what people look like, they show something about who they are." Maya had indeed been drawing portraits, starting with the animals from the zoo and progressing to the people in her life. She drew Rosa at work, her face concentrated and competent as she organized files. She drew William explaining something complicated, his hands gesturing as he spoke. She drew Catherine gardening, her expression peaceful and content. "These are remarkable, Maya," William said, studying the collection of drawings she had brought to Sunday dinner. "You've captured something essential about each of us." "Mrs. Chen says I should enter the Young Artists competition at the community center," Maya said shyly. "But I don't know if my work is good enough." "It absolutely is," Catherine said firmly. "In fact, I think you should enter several pieces. Show them the range of your abilities." The competition was still months away, but Maya began preparing seriously, working on a series of drawings that told the story of her year. There was the shelter where she and Rosa had lived, drawn with careful attention to the dignity of the family staying there temporarily. There was the zoo, with detailed studies of the animals that had captured her imagination. There was their new apartment, warm and welcoming in the afternoon light. But the centerpiece of her collection was a portrait of Rosa, drawn from memory of the day they had moved into their own place. Rosa's face showed exhaustion from the physical work of moving, but also something deeper, a sense of relief and accomplishment that spoke to years of struggle finally finding resolution. "This one," Mrs. Chen said when Maya showed her the portrait, "this one should definitely be in the competition. You've captured not just your grandmother's appearance, but her story." As spring turned to summer, Maya's life settled into new rhythms. Rosa worked regular hours and came home each evening with energy left over for homework help and conversations about Maya's day. They cooked dinner together in their small kitchen, played dominoes at the table by the window, and read books from the public library before bed. The Sunday dinners continued, often featuring video calls with Jessica and Marcus, who had become Maya's long-distance best friends. They shared school stories, compared homework assignments, and made plans for the California cousins' next visit to New York. "We're coming for Christmas," Jessica announced during one call. "Mom and Dad already bought the plane tickets." "Really?" Maya's face lit up. "You'll get to see snow. And you'll get to meet us in person," Marcus added. "We can go to the zoo together and see the penguins you're always talking about." Maya realized with surprise that she hadn't been to the zoo since her birthday. The memory of that perfect day had become almost dreamlike in its significance, but somehow the need to return had faded as her life had filled with other joys. "Actually," William said, "I think it's time for another zoo visit." It's been almost 6 months since Maya's birthday adventure. Do we go next weekend? Maya asked eagerly. I want to see if the penguins remember me. Catherine laughed. I don't think penguins have very long memories, sweetheart, but I'm sure they'll be just as charming as they were before. The second zoo visit was different from the first. Less magical perhaps, but more comfortable. Maya moved through the exhibits with the confidence of someone who belonged there, pointing out favorite animals to Rosa and sharing facts she had learned in her research for art class. Look how much she's grown, Catherine murmured to William as they watched Maya explain penguin behavior to Rosa with the authority of a nature documentary narrator. In every way, William agreed. She's taller, more confident, but most importantly, she's secure. She knows she belongs somewhere now. That security was tested in small ways as Maya navigated the social complexities of her changing circumstances. Some classmates noticed her new clothes and improved lunch, asking questions about how her family's situation had changed. Maya learned to navigate these conversations carefully, not wanting to seem boastful, but also not wanting to hide the positive changes in her life. Maya's grandmother got a really good job, she would say simply. We're doing better now. Mrs. Patterson, her teacher, was more direct in her observations. Maya, you seem much more relaxed this year, she said after parent-teacher conferences. Your attention span has improved, and your creative writing has become even more sophisticated. I think she feels safer, Rosa explained to Mrs. Patterson. When children do not have to worry about basic needs, they can focus on learning and growing. The truth of this became evident in Maya's academic performance. Her grades, which had always been good despite the challenges at home, improved to excellent. She qualified for the gifted and talented program at her new school and was recommended for advanced placement in both art and English. College is not just a dream anymore, Rosa told William and Catherine over dinner one evening. Maya's counselor says with her grades and abilities, she will have many opportunities for scholarships. Speaking of college, William said, Catherine and I have been discussing Maya's education fund. We'd like to start contributing to it regularly, if that's acceptable to you. Rosa's eyes filled with the tears that still came whenever the Harrisons' generosity overwhelmed her. You have already changed our lives completely, she said. This is too much. Rosa, Catherine said gently, Maya is our granddaughter now. Grandparents help with college expenses. It's what we do. Maya looked around the table at the three adults who had become her foundation, who had taken a simple request for zoo companionship and transformed it into a complete life change. She was old enough now to understand the magnitude of what had happened, how a single moment of courage in asking for help had led to everything good in her current life. I want to write about it, she said suddenly, for the young authors competition at school, about how asking for help can change everything. That's a wonderful idea, William said. Your story could inspire other children who might be afraid to ask for help when they need it. The young authors competition became Maya's focus for the remainder of the school year. She worked on her essay during art class, in the quiet hours before bed, and sometimes at the office where Rosa worked when she didn't have other after-school activities. William's office had become another home for Maya. The employees had adopted her as their unofficial mascot, and she had a small desk in the corner of Rosa's workspace where she could do homework while Rosa finished her daily tasks. The office manager had taught Maya to use the copy machine, and the bookkeeper was helping her understand basic mathematics concepts that wouldn't be covered in school for several more years. Maya's going to be running this place before she's 18, William's business partner joked during a staff meeting. She's already improved our client satisfaction ratings, William replied seriously. She designed new welcome packets for our clients' children, complete with coloring books and small toys. Parents appreciate the thoughtful touches. Maya had indeed become an unofficial consultant on making the business more family-friendly. Her suggestions had led to a small play area in the waiting room, child-sized chairs for family meetings, and a drawer of healthy snacks for young visitors. It's good business, William explained to a colleague who questioned the expense of these additions. Parents remember how they're treated, and word-of-mouth referrals are our best advertising. As the end of the school year approached, Maya's essay was selected as one of 3 finalists in the Young Authors competition. She would read her piece aloud at the school's awards ceremony, with Rosa, William, and Catherine in the crowd. Audience. "I'm nervous," Maya confided to Catherine the day before the ceremony. "What if I forget what I want to say?" "Then you'll pause, take a breath, and remember that you're telling a true story about courage and kindness," Catherine replied. "The most important thing is to speak from your heart." The awards ceremony was held in the school auditorium, decorated with student artwork and filled with proud families. Maya wore a new dress that Catherine had helped her select, simple but elegant, in a shade of blue that brought out her eyes. When her name was called, Maya walked to the podium with steady steps, her essay clutched in slightly trembling hands. She looked out at the audience, found Rosa's proud face, William's encouraging nod, and Catherine's warm smile, and began to read. "My name is Maya Rodriguez, and this is the story of how asking for help changed my life," she began, her voice clear and strong. 8 months ago, I was a homeless child who wanted to see penguins. Today, I am a student with her own bedroom, a grandmother with a good job, and a family that includes people who started as strangers but became grandparents through kindness. She told the story simply but powerfully, explaining how a single moment of courage in approaching the Harrisons had led to employment for Rosa, housing stability for both of them, and educational opportunities Maya had never dared to dream about. "I learned that asking for help isn't the same as begging," she read. "When you ask politely and honestly for something reasonable, you give other people the chance to be kind. And sometimes, kindness grows into something much bigger than anyone expected." The auditorium was completely quiet as Maya finished reading, and then the applause began, starting with Rosa's enthusiastic clapping and spreading throughout the room. Maya's essay won first place, but more importantly, it opened conversations about homelessness, family support, and community responsibility that continued long after the ceremony ended. Several teachers approached Maya and Rosa afterward, sharing their own stories of students who might benefit from similar support systems. William found himself exchanging business cards with other parents who were interested in creating mentorship programs for children in temporary housing situations. "You've started something important," Mrs. Patterson told Maya as the evening wound down. "Your courage in sharing your story is going to help other children who might be afraid to ask for help." That summer brought new adventures and continued growth. Jessica and Marcus visited for 2 weeks in July, and the cousins explored New York City together, visiting museums, riding the subway, and of course, spending a day at the zoo. Maya was proud to show them her city, to demonstrate her knowledge of navigating public transportation, and to introduce them to her world. "I can't believe you just walked up to strangers and asked them to take you to the zoo," Jessica said as they watched the penguins. "I would have been way too scared." "I was scared too," Maya admitted, "but I wanted to see the penguins more than I was afraid of asking." "And now they're your grandparents," Marcus said wonderingly. "That's like something from a movie." "Better than a movie," Maya replied, "because it's real." The art competition results were announced in August, and Maya's portrait of Rosa won second place in the junior division. The recognition came with a small scholarship to a summer art program and the opportunity to display her work in the community center's gallery for ABS month. "I'm so proud I might burst," Rosa told everyone who would listen. "My granddaughter, the artist, with her picture in a real gallery." William and Catherine organized a small reception for the gallery opening, inviting friends, family, and colleagues to celebrate Maya's achievement. Maya stood beside her portrait of Rosa, explaining her technique and inspiration to visitors who genuinely seemed interested in her artistic process. "This young lady has a bright future ahead of her," the gallery director told Catherine. "She has technical skill, but more importantly, she has something to say. That combination is rare at any age." As autumn approached and Maya prepared to start 4th grade at her new school, she reflected on the year that had changed everything. The uncertainty and instability that had once defined her daily life had been replaced by routines and security that she no longer took for granted. She had her own bedroom with butterfly curtains and a desk for homework. Rosa came home every evening at the same time. no longer exhausted from multiple jobs, but energized by work that challenged and fulfilled her. Sunday dinners had become a cornerstone of their week, a time for family connection and planning for the future. But perhaps most importantly, Maya had learned that asking for help, when done with courage and honesty, could open doors she hadn't even known existed. The simple request for zoo companionship had led to a complete transformation of her circumstances, proving that sometimes the most extraordinary changes begin with the most ordinary moments of human connection. On the anniversary of her zoo birthday, Maya sat in her bedroom working on a new drawing. This one showed a little girl approaching two well-dressed strangers on a city street, her face nervous but determined. In the background, barely visible but somehow essential to the composition, were the shadows of penguins and butterflies, symbols of dreams that had seemed impossible but had somehow come true. She had titled the drawing, "The Day Everything Changed," and she planned to give it to William and Catherine as a thank you gift for the year of transformation they had made possible. But as she worked on the final details, Maya realized that the real gift had been mutual. The Harrisons had gained a granddaughter and the joy of watching a child thrive under their care. Rosa had found dignity and purpose in meaningful work. And Maya had discovered that family could be created through kindness as much as through blood, that security could be built through community as much as through individual effort. The little girl who had pressed her face against the coffee shop window 12 months earlier, dreaming of penguins and gathering courage to approach strangers, had grown into a confident young person with artistic talent, academic success, and most importantly, the knowledge that she was loved and valued by people who had chosen to make her part of their lives. As Maya put the finishing touches on her drawing, she could hear Rosa in the kitchen preparing dinner, humming softly as she cooked. From the living room came the sound of the evening news, a normal domestic soundtrack that represented everything Maya had hoped for during those uncertain months in temporary housing. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new opportunities. 4th grade at a new school, advanced art classes, and continued work on her writing skills. But tonight, Maya was simply a 9-year-old girl in her own room, working on art while her grandmother cooked dinner and her honorary grandparents planned next weekend's family activities. She had asked for a trip to the zoo and received a lifetime of belonging. She had offered politeness and received profound generosity in return. And she had learned that sometimes the most important question a person can ask is not for money or possessions, but for the simple human connection that makes all other good things possible. The penguins, Maya thought as she signed her name to the finished drawing, had been just the beginning.